Hello, my little mathematicians. Today we're going to explore expressions. So, an expression is a mathematical statement. Okay. And so, first off, what we're going to explore is try to come up with as many word phrases as you can to represent this mathematical expression. So, I mean, it can be as simple as 4 plus 2, with you actually writing out 4 plus 2, or writing out 4 like FOUR and 2 as TWO. Okay, that would be the word phrase. And then this is the mathematical expression. Now, of course, there's more complicated ways to write this because we know that sum means addition, right? So we could write the sum of 4 and 2. Okay, and that's the word sum indicates that, oh, we're adding. So I'm going to add the 4 and the 2. So can you think of any other ways to represent 4 plus 2 other than saying these two ways? Yeah, you could use added to, more than, increased by, greater than, those two combined. The order doesn't matter, okay? Whenever you're adding, order doesn't matter. Why? Because 4 plus 2 is 6, and then switch it. What's 2 plus 4? Still 6. Okay, so according to the commutative property, you can move the order of these and you'll still get the same answer. Now, that's different than when you're talking about subtraction. So, can you go ahead and try to write the different ways that you could represent this using subtraction? Okay. And before you do that, let's just switch this to be a 5 because then the examples that I have will make a little bit more sense. Okay, so if it says 5 minus 1, what are all the ways that you can think of to represent 5 minus 1 written out? Okay, so you can pause the video and come back and join us once you think you have it. Okay, so now that you're back with us, I mean, it could be as simple as 5 minus 1. Another word that means minus is difference, right? That's the answer to a subtraction problem. And man, this was just all over the place, wasn't it? It'd be the difference of 5 and 1. Okay. 5 take away 1 is saying the same thing as that. 5 less 1, which I want to point out is different than, let's skip down to this one right here. 1 less than 5. Do you think the order matters for subtraction? Is 5 minus 1 the same thing as 1 minus 5? Because we said 4 plus 2 is 6. Is, if I switch these, is 2 plus 4 still 6? Yes. 5 minus 1 is 4. Is 1 minus 5 going to give me the same answer of 4? No, it's actually going to give me negative 4. So 1 minus 5 is very different than 5 minus 1. So with subtraction, we actually need to be a little bit more careful about how we write it. So notice I'm going to draw a line right here, okay, that separates the top half from the bottom half. So this one, they're all in the same order, 5, 1, then 5, then 1, 5, 1, 5, 1, 5, 1, 5, 1. Then it switches it with the 1 first and the 5 second. So whenever you see the word less than, fewer than, or taken away from, or subtracted from, that actually switches the order of it. Because what are you taking 1 away from? You're taking it away from the 5. So this would put 1 in the back if you have this word like taken away from or subtracted from, or even than at the end. If it's less than, fewer than, it switches the order. It moves the 1 to the back to represent this. Okay, so we need to be pretty careful when we're dealing with subtraction. All of these words, it puts it in the same order. So it's 5, write a 5, minus sign, 1. The difference of, you put it in the order, 5 and a subtraction sign between, and then the 1. 5, take away, what are you taking away? 1. So all of these words, you write it in the order that it comes. But if you see a take away from, or subtracted from, or less than, or fewer than, it moves this number to the back. So it'd be 5 minus 1. Okay, so just important note to take note of. The order of the numbers definitely matters when you're dealing with subtraction. Now, does it matter for multiplication. 7 times 3 is 21. What's 3 times 7? Still 21. So the order doesn't really matter for multiplication, just like it didn't matter for addition. So think of all the ways that you could represent 7 times 3. I just gave you one, 7 times 3. Actually write that out. What are some other ways? What's the answer to a multiplication problem? Product, right? So one of the most common ways you'll see is the product of 7 and 3. Another way of saying times is multiplied by 3. Okay, now if you wrote 3 multiplied by 7, doesn't matter, because again, multiplication, order doesn't matter. Is that the only way to represent multiplication? No, you can think of groups of. And then the only thing we want to take note of for multiplication is when you have a fraction followed by the word of another number, that means you're going to multiply that fraction with that number. Okay, so this could be as simple as 1/4 times 8 or 1/4 of 8. That means 1/4 times 8. Okay, anytime you see a fraction followed by the word of some other number, you're going to multiply that fraction in that number. Okay, that's an important thing that comes up quite often. So we wanted to include that with the multiplication section. Now, to represent this, 6 divided by 2 or 6 over 2. This fraction is literally saying the same thing as this, because a fraction bar is saying top divided by the bottom. So it's saying 6 divided by 2. So how could you write it out in words? Exactly what we just said, 6 divided by 2. And then what are some other fancy ways that you can say it? The quotient of 6 and 2, 6 divided into 2, 6 split evenly into 2. Okay, all of those works. Now, do you think the order matters for division? Think about it. Is 6 over 2 the same as 2 over 6? So let's look at this. Is 6 over 2 the same thing as 2 over 6? Well, what does this reduce to? If I reduce this by 2, this would reduce to 3 over 1, which is just 3. If I reduce this by 2, this fraction would become 1/3, and that's as small as it gets. Is 1/3 the same as 3? No, this is, if I were to change this to a decimal, this is 0.3 repeating, or like 33 cents. And this is 3.0, or like $3. $3.33, very different. 3 and 1/3 is very different. So 6 over 2 is different than 2 over 6. So how we want them to write it is important. So the order matters when you're writing it, because you're basically, when you write out these word phrases, you're telling the person how they should write this mathematical expression. So you need to be very explicit and be very clear and let them know what goes on top and what goes on the bottom. Okay, and so for this, it basically goes in the order that you state. So if you say the quotient of 6 and 2, that tells the reader they need to put 6 on top and 2 on the bottom. Okay, so keep that in mind whenever you are dealing with both division and subtraction, that order matters. Okay. All right, so there's the front side. We're going to have a little bit more practice on the back. If you can go ahead and turn the page. Okay. Now, what's different about these versus the ones on the previous page? These ones have letters or variables. Okay, so a variable is an unknown number. And so we use that variable to represent something that we don't know yet. An algebraic expression, it's just like a numerical expression, except it's an expression that contains a variable to represent some unknown number. So instead of saying, like on the other side, we did 4 plus 2, now we're going to say a number plus 5. What number plus 5? We don't know. So we're literally just going to put a number plus 5. What's another word to represent plus? Sum, right? So the sum of and instead of writing a number out each time, I can just do a hashtag that says a number. The sum of a number and 5. Can you think of any others? How about a number increased by 5? Or 5 added to a number. Okay, all of those are saying x plus 5. What about this one? Let's have it be where like I want it to know to the reader it's 7 minus y. So I can literally just say that, 7 minus y. Okay, or you could say 7 minus a number. Okay, same thing. This is just letting them know the specific number that the variable they want to use is a y, and this is letting them choose whatever variable they want. Okay, now if I were to use the phrase decreased by, would it go 7 and a number or a number and then 7? What do you think? If it's decreased by, it's 7, and what is it getting decreased by? That y, so a number. What if I used less? Is it 7 less a number or a number less 7? It would be 7 less a number. But as soon as you say less than, that changes the order. So it would be a number less than 7. So that moves a number to the back, and it would be 7 minus y if I said less than. Okay, difference comes up a lot. Would, if I use the word difference, would it be the difference of 7 and y or the difference of y and 7? It would be the difference of 7 and y. Okay, I think we've done enough of those. Now let's try these. What's happening? Okay, this is saying 3 times a number, or 3 times n. This is saying 3 times n as well. We actually, as math teachers, prefer you do this from here on out and try to stay away from this. I know it's essentially saying the same thing, but we're going to be dealing with a lot of variables. So in order to help clarify and not draw any confusion, this could be saying in the future when we have more than one variable, 3 times some unknown number x times some unknown number n. And you're like, so is that representing an x, like a variable, or is it representing a multiplication sign? So that's why we want to now kind of stay away from using this. Like, yes, here it's a multiplication sign, but as we start getting more variables, it'll get really confusing, especially if, what if your variable was x, 3xx? Try to stay away from this. If you have a variable touching a number with no sign between them, that means they're being multiplied. So try to have this being represented as 3 times a number from here on out. Okay, grown-up way, baby way that we're going to stay away from. What's another way we could write 3 times a number? Keyword that means multiplication is the product. So the product of 3 and a number. Simple 3 multiplied by a number. And if I were to switch the order and say a number times 3, it doesn't matter because remember 3n is the same as n3, except we technically don't want to write it that way. Like when you're actually writing it out, try not to write it that way, write it this way. But if you have this word phrase, that's fine. We would write that as 3n. Okay, now what's this saying? This is saying y divided by 2. Or a number divided by 2. Same thing, right? A number divided by 2. We don't know what that number is. It's y. What's another word that we should know that means divided? Yeah, quotient. So the quotient of, is it a number and 2 or 2 and a number? Whenever you're doing this, whatever comes first would go on top and whatever comes second would go on the bottom. So we're going to say the quotient of a number, or y, and 2. Okay, and then how about a number split by 2 evenly? Or split evenly by 2, okay? Same thing. Hopefully that gave you a little bit of practice coming up with word phrases. Now, can you do the opposite of that? And if they give you a word phrase, can you try to write the algebraic or numerical expression? Okay. Why don't you go ahead and pause and try all these and then unpause it and come back and let's see how many you get right. Okay. You're back with us, and I hope we all got this right. Okay, the baby weigh n divided by 3 still works, but why not write it like that? Same thing, n divided by 3. Okay, the sum means plus. The sum of what? 2 and some number. Okay, now for this, if you switched it, it doesn't matter technically because whatever this is, let's say it was 1. 1 plus 2 is 3. 2 plus 1 is still 3, right? So the order doesn't matter for that one. The product, so multiply 5 times some unknown number. Okay, yes, you could say that, but we don't like this. Ew, gross. We don't want to do that. Like maybe we could do that with parentheses, but we don't even need the parentheses right now. Just write it as 5n. Okay, 10 times a number, and we don't know what that number is, so let's use a variable. 8 minus a number. Some number minus 8. 7 plus some number. Quotient, so divided, what am I dividing? 1 and some number. A number divided by 4. Hopefully you've been doing pretty well, at least gotten some of these right. Okay, product means multiply, so 7 times some number. 9, take away a number. 4 taken away from, so that moves it to the back. Taken away from what? A number. A number decreased by 6. 8 less some number, which is different than 5 less than a number. That moves the 5 to the back. What are you taking 5 away from? Some number. Notice the difference between these. When it says less than, it moves it to the back. Okay, same thing with the 4 taken away from. It moved the 4 to the back. Otherwise, all the subtraction ones were in the order that it came. Okay, quotient means divide. And whenever it's dividing, it's just the order that they tell you. So number, that comes first. And then on the bottom, after the word and, is the 2. Okay, 2/3, fraction of some number. So fraction of what? We don't know the number, so we're just going to represent it with an n. 2/3 n. The product, so I'm going to multiply 2, and it says the product of 2 and a number increased by 3. So the product of 2 and a number increased by 3. There you go. Same thing. Okay. 10, or right here, the quotient of a number and 4 decreased by 10. So this is the quotient of n and 4, and it's getting decreased by 10. Or if it said 10 taken away from, that would move the 10 to the back as well. So it's n over 4 minus 10. All right, hopefully you did pretty well on those. I strongly recommend that you look at the key indicator that we have in the back of your packet and really study all the different words that mean addition and all the different words that mean subtraction. So for instance, what I'm talking about is this page right here, okay? So maybe hand this to a friend or a neighbor or a sibling or a parent, okay, and ask them, be specific, say, can you read one of these and I have to tell you, oh, that means subtraction. Like if you said how much more than, I'd have to tell you that means subtraction. Or if you said quotient, I have to tell you that means division. If you said the word deposit, I'd have to tell you that indicates addition. And please read them out of order and like jump around. And that way you read the word phrase and I have to tell you what it means. And then hand the packet to the sibling or friend or parent and have them quiz you. Okay. And this would be a great tool to study all those words. And then maybe try that page that we just did. And I bet your score will improve.